following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin. Hey everyone, I'm Christine.
And I'm Janice.
And Jada is joining us to do as well. I'm not sure where she went to, but this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. So hi. For those of you joining us today, we're really excited to have you. We are talking about sex and love addiction today. So that's exciting because I have some, pretty strong opinions about, sex and love addiction. So, hey, Jada's joined us.
Hey, hi. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
But, in this podcast, we never know what fucking happens. So we are fly by the seat of our pants kind of gals. So, hi everyone. Just wanted to touch base with everybody how their week went.
Well, besides doing taxes, as Christine knows, I've been having a lot of fun, and life is good. Yeah, lots of socializing, some sexy times as well.
Nice.
I've been good. I was in New York last week. I'm exhausted.
Yes. The matchmaker convention.
Yes, I am so tired, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So everything's been good.
Did you matchmakers party it up?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'd like to see how matchmakers party.
Yeah. Maybe I partied a little too much.
Yeah, there we go.
Something juicy about it. Come on.
Yeah.
Did
you do a one-night stand with another matchmaker? Come on.
Man.
Nothing
Did
sexy?
you do anything sexy in New York?
No. I had to think about it. Like, did I?
Hey, Jada, do you have any gossip about anyone we know?
Next time,
I don't have any gossip, but I will say there were so many matchmakers from all over, and I met a very interesting couple that are new to matchmaking, and they're forming a polyamorous matchmaking company.
Can you please put me in
which
touch
I was
with
like, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, there was a lot of different niches there, but it was good. It was really good.
I'm going to follow up with you. I'd love that. How cool. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I had my own opinions. I wasn't really all about the polyamorous life for the longest time, just because I didn't really know anything about it. But, having this podcast and talking previously with other people, special guests who have come on who are polyamorous, and I get it. And you know what? There's something for everyone, and I love that. And I actually love the fact that they're doing a matchmaking for polyamorous people. That's great. Good for them.
Fantastic.
Good for them.
What's another niche? Just while we have you, what was another niche that you weren't expecting?
There was another woman. She used to be a porn star. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So she used to be a porn star, and she has a company helping people in the porn industry find a person, because it's harder for them because a lot of people don't want to date somebody that's in porn. But
I love that one. That one.
That is awesome.
I've dated porn stars, guys. Well, and my threesome sexual experiences was with female porn stars with guys I knew. So I love it. This kind of leads into what we're going to be talking about today about sex, love, and porn addiction. So I actually am really excited to know that there's something like that out there. I had something interesting happen this afternoon. I worked 13 hours yesterday as a private chef, and I am dying today. You can't, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm fucked
You
up.
could tell when we were texting because I'm so in tune with you. I knew that something was off and I was going to ask you, but
I'm beat from head to toe and kind of emotionally and mentally beat too, but that's a whole nother story. I was laying in bed. I was just kind of resting because I had a really bad headache today. Have a really bad headache today. And I was scrolling through Facebook, and you know how on Facebook they say, you may know this person, and it has all these people that you may know. Well, it was a guy that I had dated a year ago, a little over a year and a half ago, maybe. And he just was, he was really beautiful. He was a gorgeous guy and a lot of potential, in his own career and stuff. But boy, he sucked as a sexual partner and he sucked as a partner. And I realized why today. Because I clicked on his Facebook thinking, oh, maybe we can be friends on Facebook, right? And I'm scrolling through, what's he been up to? Oh, I almost said his name. And I can't say his name because his name is Googleable because it's extremely interesting. And I was going, oh, I wonder what he's up to. And he had a girlfriend the whole time we were seeing each other. She must have been out of town on the times he came to see me. So.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Can you tell me his name privately?
Yeah. So that was funny. I don't care. I mean, it is who people are going to do what people are going to do. It doesn't affect me.
I actually found out also after I had seen someone a few years back that he had been seeing someone the whole time. I was really shocked. And also I have to say, I would have never known.
Yeah.
He did not give me any indication of this. We, it didn't really work out. And I went on Facebook and oh my God, I was like mind blown.
I know the things you can find out on Facebook. Well, we I have to say I'm very excited about today's episode because we have Steve Oskard coming back to be with us today. Steve's been with us a couple of times. He is a sex educator and embodied counselor, and he helps people with sex and intimacy and relationships. And today we're talking about sex and love addiction. And one of those things in that category for me that I think kind of goes hand in hand with that is also porn addiction. And, like Steve had said to me prior to the show, when we were talking about the subject and how I was going to break it down, he was saying, what if we're all wrong about the notions that's attached to addiction to sex, porn, and love? And, what if our struggles to overcome those issues were a pathway to keep, to deep learning and not about fixing it. And, I never really thought about it that way, but I think I really agree with that because what's to fix? Maybe there's ways of learning about it, and we'll talk about that today. Maybe there's, different notions of what we can do to not let it affect us in a negative way or our relationships in a negative way. I think it's a completely different type of addiction than, say, drugs and alcohol. Because, I grew up with addictions to drugs and alcohol in my family, and it affected me greatly. And I find that, so this is the thing. I do believe that alcohol addiction is a disease, okay, and that it can be passed down genetically. My grandmother was an alcoholic and died from it. My father was an alcoholic and died from it. And I purposely stayed away from it because of that. But I found that I have other addictions. I have sex addiction, love addiction, and sugar addiction. Those are really strong for me. And when I say sex and love addiction, I don't like the breakdown of what they classify as sex addictions because I think that there are many different ways you can be addicted to sex. And just one person, say myself, doesn't have all the criteria of what the breakdown of a sex addiction person is, doesn't mean that I don't have some form of sex addiction. But I've been
What
able.
do you mean by addiction in the first place?
Well, we're going to talk about this with Steve. So why don't we just bring Steve on, and then we can start to talk about the breakdown of these kind of things and what we can do to do that. Let's bring on Steve.
Let's do it. Hey.
Hey,
Hi.
Steve.
Hi.
Great to see you all.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
I said,
thanks for having me.
hey, Steve, and my Siri popped up. Like, okay.
I'll
Maybe I
respond
should.
to anything.
Maybe I should rename my Siri to Hey Steve. So welcome back to the show. We can't thank you enough for coming and being with us today.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
Janice was asking, for me, what I classify as a sex addiction. And that is when, to my own physical or emotional or mental detriment, I need to have some sort of sexual encounter constantly to make myself, not so much now, but in the past, needed that in the sense of the love addiction. And we can break down love addiction with you. The need to always have to have some kind of physical interaction with men, because for me, it meant love. Growing up in a sexually abused home for me, with a parent who sexually abused me, that meant that was that adult's way of saying, hey, I love you. And I thought that love centered around sex. Sex was all balled up in love. So I always had to have a lot of sex, a lot of sexual encounters. It's hard for me to explain what I mean. And I'm trying to fight the emotion behind it and just talk about the facts right now. So I think I'm flustered and I'm sweating like a crazy person right now because I'm trying
For being so vulnerable.
Yeah, because it's really hard to keep the emotional side out of this when I talk about these things, and to be my agent and to say, hey, and admit publicly, this is the biggest public way I can say that I grew up a child of sexual and physical, emotional, and torment abuse. Okay, so the fact that I'm semi-normal person is a miracle. So that's hard for me to admit, and I'm fanning myself right now because I'm literally sweating balls. So Steve, talk to us about sex and love addictions, what actually that means, and what are your thoughts on it, and how, Janice has stories, Jada and we both have things that we can kind of interact to discuss this. So but I'd love for you to start us out.
Well, first let me acknowledge you for being vulnerable the way that you were. It was great because you were sharing in such a way that kind of illustrated what I shared with you prior to the podcast today, that anything that you can have be a doorway to learning is of use and nourishing to you, I wouldn't consider an addiction. So you're framing it just now, maybe you used the word addiction, but you actually were accessing, the sweating. It was your body just telling you, whew, okay, it's a somatic release. It's your body actually, you're still fanning yourself. It's your body just responding to your presence to your history. So it was like you were dipping back into your past and remembering, oh, this is some of my history. And I still can connect to that somatically. And you started sweating. And that can be rich learning. So being vulnerable that way and sharing it and being witnessed by at least 3 of us now, but knowing that there's other listeners, and you're actually bearing your soul in a way that's deeply healing. Being seen and know that you didn't die. Those things that we have shame for. And it's funny because I always think all of us are like one step away from an existential crisis. Oh my God, I'm going to die. And then when we don't, from sharing something, we realize, oh, actually being vulnerable isn't terrifying.
Yeah.
And the quality of addiction and how that word is thrown around so much is often a quality of powerlessness.
I agree.
But when you acknowledge your vulnerability and actually can lean in and engage in a conversation about it, you're not powerless in that moment.
Yeah.
There's some rich, fodder for growth, so to speak. So when you talk about the traditional model of dealing with addiction, and let's be honest, addiction is big business.
Yeah.
And it can be very successful in how they're treating people who are dealing with addiction. So I'm not an expert in that model, and I don't work in that model. And I give it props because it's effective for people. And I have another way of looking at it. And I would say that sex educators, sex therapists share, not always, but share some of my views on this. And I share some of the views that they have on this, that sex, porn, love is not really an addiction.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to define, though, that kind of fits with this, and I wrote this down, is what we toss this word around a lot also, toxic relationships or toxic experiences. And I have my own definition of that. I consider the toxic relationship or a toxic experience an experience where the pain you're experiencing outweighs the learning you're getting. So even though there may be some openings and some learning, it's more painful for you than you're willing to engage. And in recognizing that you have a choice, you can opt out. I'm not going to stay in this relationship or this experience right now. You do have a choice, and that gives you a tremendous amount of power and tremendous access to learning.
I love that. And I do like that you said that my brain was working really fast when you were talking. So I was thinking about all these things. If you could hear the grinding going, I think you had said that, let's take out the word addiction, basically. And I do agree. I think that using the word addiction with porn, sex, and love creates a negative connotation that it's a bad thing. And I don't think that it's a bad thing. I think that people can do bad things with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's a bad or shameful thing. I think that someone who has been maybe shamed into thinking that they're bad for enjoying sex, wanting a lot of sex, wanting blah, 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 wanting to be part of love, needing to be part of love, and enjoying porn. If someone says they don't watch any porn, I feel very sad for them. I do. I do.
A lot of the discussion around it is that it should somehow be something shameful or something to hide. I was actually listening to a popular podcast that maybe I shouldn't even say a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about whether or not porn is cheating, which I was seriously already like rolling my eyes, but then I started listening because, it was compelling. And the way that they framed it the entire time was so like, this is not something that anyone would want to do. And why?
Porn's not cheating. Cheating is cheating. That's a whole nother ballgame.
Well, I want to play the devil's advocate here, because what makes it something cheating is that you're actually breaking an agreement. So it depends on the tenor of your relationship. If you've never talked about whether watching porn or not watching porn is cheating, then it's an opening for a conversation. If one says, hey, I don't like this, and the other one says, well, hey, I've been watching it, then, oh, great, now we can talk about something.
One of the first questions I asked my current boyfriend when we were first getting together, I was like, what kind of porn do you like? And he told me a while after, he was like, I was so shocked that you asked me that, but I thought it was so cool. I'm like, I'm curious.
I've talked about porn with people I've dated. It's topic of conversation on dates for me sometimes, because I want to know what kind of freedom and sexuality they have. I want to know, are they uptight? Are they basic? Are they exciting? And I think, and as long as it doesn't have anything to do with animals or under the age of 18, then I'm good to go.
Oh my
But
God,
if
you guys watched the documentary about Jared from Subway?
no, I gotta
No.
see that.
What he got caught with had both.
Both animals and
Animals and under 18, yeah.
Oh my God. So yeah. So Steve, what do you think we should be wrapping around sex and love and porn, situations? I'm gonna
Well,
remove the word addiction.
well, or we either remove the word or come up with a working definition that actually empowers us.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'll say that what I call addiction is a self-evaluation where you say, this is interfering with the quality of my life. So
Okay.
whether it's working out too much or how you're eating or too much or sex or porn, whatever it is, if you're engaging in this activity and it's interfering, like a self-evaluation, like I say, this is interfering with the quality of my life. Like I'm working out and avoiding having a social life. That's interfering. So in your evaluation of your life, that you say it's not by somebody else's standards, and this is where it gets tricky in relationships, because one partner, like we talked about porn for a few minutes ago. One partner might say, "Oh no, porn is cheating. You're not allowed to watch porn," and the other partner is, "Well, I watch porn." So, and they've never discussed it. Then what is it when the partner who doesn't like it finds out that they're watching porn? Then it's either a taboo moment where one person's making the other person wrong and turns into a fight and blaming and shaming each other.
Yeah.
Or it becomes an opening for a conversation. Like, oh, we never discussed this when we first started dating. We're not like Janet. Hey, what kind of porn? Like, it's not. Go ahead.
I think that I'm just going to say women. I'm just going to generalize it in the moment. From my point of view, women. Let's say it's a woman who says, "I don't want my partner to watch sex." Watch sex. Yeah, watch sex, porn, whatever. For me, I think, oh boy, that is someone who's incredibly insecure. They're not secure in what they have with that person. They're afraid they're gonna, think somebody else is sexier. And actually, in my experience, in my opinion, when you're watching porn, it has nothing to do with desiring to be with that type of person or that other person. I'm a voyeur. I enjoy watching other people have sex. I enjoy people watching me have sex.
Masturbation is normal and natural and very, very healthy. And some people appreciate having the visual stimulation in order to get excited to the point of wanting or masturbating. So I don't really understand the problem. Some people.
Well, here's the thing: as a counselor, I want to have compassion for everyone. So the person who says no porn, I want to be curious about that and say, "Oh, tell me about that." Why
You're
is
too
that?
good.
So they can grow also. And so normally, culturally, we now villainize the person who's watching porn because there's this huge generalization, of course, but culturally, there's this view that porn is bad. Well, now the four of us don't agree with that. But what about the person who does feel like porn is bad? Well, we haven't heard from Jada yet.
Oh no, I think it's wonderful. So
Jada. So Jada, what kind of porn do you
like? Nothing with animals or
You're so insecure.
I draw the line at scat. I'm only comfortable saying that because I know there's not a huge segment that I'm now alienating of our population. However, I will say that I've worked with people that's been their kink, and I get it. I don't judge it. I'm like, okay, that's your kink. Awesome. Tell me about it. Because I'm really interested in having people grow and explore and be curious and not imposing my view onto them about what is acceptable, good, bad behavior. I'm interested in people accessing pleasure as long as it's consensual and doesn't harm anyone. So we you have to train yourself to be mindful of where I'm imposing my own judgment. Like, Janice and Christine, you kind of imposed your judgment of you said women who don't like that their partners watch porn, but
you're 1,000% right. I'm checking myself. You're 1,000% right. Absolutely.
Well, look, I have friends who don't want their husbands watching porn.
Yeah.
I don't judge them for that. I just say to him all the time, well, you're kind of missing out on participating in that. Why don't you ask him if you can watch with him? See what it does, see how it feels. Maybe find something you like together and watch it together. And maybe it can make your life a little bit more sexually adventurous.
Don't you think though, that that's putting self-pleasure and things that you do on your own a little bit in the closet? By saying that you have to share this with your partner?
No, I'm just saying that these women who are opposed to it and think their husbands or boyfriends are horrible people for watching it, I say stop judging them for having something that they have liked or enjoy when it comes to sexual pleasure. Why not adventure and see what it's all about? Watch it yourself. If you can't, can't, then ask your partner if he'd be willing to watch it with you. It's like just opening your mind to something instead of just allowing something like that to destroy a relationship.
And I'm right there with you, Christine. However, that might be too big of a leap for some people.
Oh, it's 100% too much of a leap.
So how do I do this? And take baby steps with them.
I'm like, go for it, bitch. Go for it.
For women, I always suggest for my female clients, and on X-Files, I talk about this all the time, is there's really, really, really wonderful audio porn that is created for women. And for anyone, for a female who has resistance to this, I always suggest it. Yeah, I actually had a subscription for a while.
Audio porn is hot, Janice.
Yes. And it's created for the female ear. There's been research and studies that have shown that women really enjoy being exposed to porn that has a storyline and that involves a relationship, and that you can follow outside of just the penetrative scene. And so that's what I would suggest to your friends, and I loved it. Still do.
I think though too, I think there could be a stigma or some type of shame surrounded by it, especially dependent upon how you grew up, whether you have a certain religion, whether you're combined a million times. So I think that has a lot to do with people's mindset as far as porn being good or bad also.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many of us were raised to be open about it?
None.
Certainly wasn't my situation.
Not me.
Not me.
So for me, the idea of some of the things that they break down as that you are a sex addict if you have these and these things. I necessarily don't agree with that, because I think that for me, it was just I had to have physical touch constantly. It was an emotional thing for me. So, and like I said earlier, tying in love with sex, I always thought that I had to have sex with somebody right away, because then, what if I didn't like it? What if it, and I fell for somebody and then the sex was terrible? Would it ruin something? Or mainly, I think that having sex brought in the thought that someone would then love me. They had to have sex with me before they could love me. Now, I don't feel these things anymore. I don't think this way anymore. But for most of my life, all of that was important to me. And I found myself in situations where I was having sex with people I really didn't even want to have sex with, because I felt like I just had to have sex, and this is handy.
Yeah.
No pun intended, or pun intended?
Again, Christine, I appreciate you sharing from your life, because it allows us to see something really specific, that you are using sex for some kind of validation, not to engage in a pleasurable experience. and really
Yes.
tune in. Does this feel right for me right now? Do I want to
Yeah.
connect with this person right now this way? Maybe I
Mhm.
just want to cuddle or hold hands, or gosh, I'm not really wanting to touch them or kiss them or whatever it is. And you were way out ahead of yourself, using touch in different forms, including sex, to validate something about yourself or to get some kind of gratification to prove something to yourself, possibly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so when working with people, if we could get curious about those things, it could be so rich with learning.
Absolutely. It took me a long time to learn these things. And I had to get help to learn these things.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of self-help, just really
Yeah.
diving into asking myself, why do I need this? What is going on? And I can probably, well, since I've been so honest so far, I might as well say up until like I'd say before my podcast started, I'd be shocked if there was a higher percentage than 1 or 2% that I didn't have sex with on the first date.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had to or needed to or wanted to or
Yeah. Those are so, can I interrupt here? Those are so
Yeah.
powerful words. Have to, need to. Those are
Mhm.
so, like you have no choice. Well, when you can slow down, you can actually think, oh, I actually don't need to. In fact, I'm
Mhm.
doing it to prove something about myself, or I'm doing it to validate myself, or I'm doing it for some reason other than, wow, I really want to connect physically with this person.
Mhm.
I feel good in their presence. I want to hold their hand or touch them or kiss them, whatever it is, and let it progress in a natural way. And certainly that's changed over time.
Yeah.
Holding hands on a first date was a big deal back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever.
And
And
here I'm
now,
out banging everybody.
what's that?
I said that's way too intimate for me. What I was gonna, Steve, do you think that the same thing can apply to porn addiction, or the way that we talk about porn addiction?
Yes.
That perhaps someone could say to themselves, this feels good and I enjoy it, and so therefore should allow myself to indulge in it. And one of the reasons I'm asking,
Yeah.
I had a conversation very recently with a friend about this, who is a sponsor in a 12-step program, and we were talking about the issue of sex addiction and porn addiction. And I said, the theory right now and the popular discourse is that these are not, things that necessarily need to be qualified as addictions. And they said to me that they were sponsoring someone who felt completely out of control when it came to their porn usage, and was like aggressively seeking help.
Oh, I'm sure that is a lot of people experience that.
Mhm.
And again, just highlight that person self-identified as this is out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So the compulsive behavior that I see is interfering with the quality of my life. From what you just described, this person that they're supporting, that they're sponsoring, self-identified, this is out of control behavior for me. I'm seeking help. And when you can say that, these 12-step programs can be tremendously powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Very.
Yeah.
But when someone else is imposing their view, that's more morality.
Yeah.
And
And coming from the Mormon faith, I've known a lot of people and known of a lot of people who are in treatment for either porn or masturbation, who are there because their pastor told them that they had to go.
And they probably just did it once and felt like they had to tell their bishop, because in the Mormon church, you have to tell your bishop freaking everything.
Bad. And they deem it as bad, but yeah.
Now here I want to lead into love addiction. So for me, sex meant that there could be a possibility of love, because I was so addicted to having love or needing love so bad. And I did realize that it was more of a self-love that I needed than anything.
But then
So it's all changed.
Yeah.
So tell us, Steve, what do you think love addiction is, and what's your opinion on that?
I have a lot of interesting views about what love is. First of all, I hope I never really know what love is. I hope love is this delicious
That's sexy, Steve. Sorry.
It is.
Hold on. That was sexy. Men, listen to that. You can use that line later on your girlfriends, on your
Feel it from
wife.
me. You know, that what if love was this endless exploration of connection with myself and others, and this deepening experience that goes on and on. And I've shared before that, you know, I've learned more about love through heartbreak than anything else. It's just so potent and rich that when I can stop, you know, suffering about it, I can see, wow, I really allowed myself to open here. I really learned something. So when you talk about love and addiction together, I don't know that it really was love ever to begin with. It was something else.
Yeah.
You know, you were seeking validation, you were seeking companionship. Like fear of being alone. Remember, I think what I was saying, we're all one step away from an existential crisis. It's like we're all afraid that, you know, we're gonna die alone. You know?
not.
I asked somebody out on a date and they say, no, I'm going to die and I'm going to die alone. You know, it's like how quickly we end up. But if we can see that I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid of, you know, you're just trying to satisfy some fear and then you're calling it love. So maybe love addiction isn't the right word. You're caught in a pattern. And again, I don't love the word addiction because in acknowledging something, you can claim some insight and power and learning around it. So yes, I'm in this pattern and I keep finding myself back in the pattern. I keep dating people and getting in relationship with someone who doesn't treat me well or whatever it is. And then you say, I'm a love addict or something, but maybe it's not love and maybe it's not addiction. You're just in a familiar pattern. Like I've had people I've worked with who are in abusive relationships and they keep returning because that's familiar to them and they know they survived it. So intellectually or conceptually, they are like, oh, this is bad. I shouldn't be in this relationship. But it's familiar and somatically they know, okay, I've survived this, even though it's painful, emotionally or physically.
Well, when you say that, it makes me go back to all the abusive relationships that I've been in. And all of it stems from being afraid of being alone by having to be forced to acknowledge who and what I am and not being okay with me. I'm okay with me now. I'm good. I can be alone. I actually enjoy it. I can also be in a relationship and enjoy it, but I choose different relationships now. I'm not in those abusive things. So I think that maybe when people are saying that they are addicted to love and are constantly having to be in some kind of relationship, maybe it's because they don't want to see what's inside.
Yeah. And or develop a relationship with yourself, which is really challenging for a lot of people, and you know, a big part of what I do. And you know, people don't want to be their own best company or be their own soulmate. They don't even know how.
That's sad. And I was a sad person.
You were on
so I feel for them.
Oh, I do too, 1,000%. And it's really exciting to walk people through the process of discovering that as well.
Yeah.
So how do you help, Steve, people who find themselves in this kind of place where they are seeking something beyond, they can't look within themselves, they need to fulfill something else, like kill the time with other people?
Interesting way of putting it, kill the time with other people.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that I really encourage people to find what nourishes them. What is pleasurable for you? What is nourishing? What is healthy? What feels good to you? So, you know, so much we want to dive into the problem. So much we want to, what's wrong with me? How do I break this pattern? But one of the first places to start is maybe, well, what works about you? What works about your life? You know, psychotherapists might refer to that as being resourced. You know, what are the healthy relationships that I have? What are the strengths that I rely on about myself, the things I'm proud of, so that you actually have a foundation of knowing yourself a little bit and knowing that, hey, I'm a good person, and starting to build this. And another word that's becoming so popular in our culture nowadays is trauma. And I have a different view on trauma also because I think that the people who are experts in working with trauma know so much more than everybody else who's talking about it. You know, people are throwing the word around like a $2 word, and there's so much nuance to it. And I refer to trauma as too much, too fast, without consent, unwelcome or unwanted, plus a story about it. So that story that you have about it can perpetuate the experience of trauma. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a dramatic experience from your past. It's just, it was when it happened, it was too much. And any combination of these, it could be one of them. It could be just the story. There are people who are traumatized by something they heard about. Didn't even happen to them.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
That their whole body contracted. They could feel it. I mean, look at the entertainment. We watch movies with all these dramatic experiences, and we don't realize that's just images on a screen in front of us. But that could be traumatizing to people. So trauma is this really fascinating topic, and it's being talked about by people throwing the words around. And when I work with people who are dealing with trauma, and again, I'm not an expert on trauma, but it comes, everybody's dealing with it in a certain way. So I look at it like a tangled ball of yarn, and we're going to tug at some of those threads. And if it's loose, that means you can be curious about it. But if we tug on it and it's stuck, we're not going to mess with it. It's kind of like the old model was face your fears. They called it exposure therapy, which had some of it was effective in some regards, but they also saw that it re-traumatized people.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be trauma all in itself. I think that we could do a whole episode on trauma.
Yeah. I would love it.
Let's do it. I mean, I love having you on here, Steve. You're awesome. So we should have you back for talking about trauma, because I do, because there are many instances that I'm out and about during the day and something can happen. I'll go, okay, I'm having some PTSD moment right now. I think I just need to take a moment, step back and breathe, and because there are times that it can be mind-boggling how much trauma can really affect your life.
Well, and relationships too. It really affects any relationship you have or try to establish. Is very challenging.
So being resourced and having a sense of yourself that is grounded, and you're proud of these things, you love these things about you, and keep on developing those areas, so that when you do and are ready to start to pull on threads, you could start to look at, okay, and if you want to talk about sex or love or porn addiction, let's pull on this thread, and is it loose? Am I in a state where I can actually be curious here and mine for the gold, so to speak? Look and see what learning there is for me. It's like, why do I keep doing this pattern? Or is it like, then we don't mess with it. You start to lean in where you can be curious. And a great practitioner, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a sex therapist, will know how to guide you in that process. And there's tremendous books out there too. There's tons of resources you could even guide yourself. So I really encourage people, first, establish a foundation of know thyself, right? Being of knowing some goodness about you and getting in touch with it. And if you're stuck and you can't, find some friends who will reflect your great back to you.
Can you suggest a book, since you mentioned that?
I was going to say, are there any books that you can recommend?
You should look at my nightstand.
My goodness.
I'm going to give you two that are hot for me right now. One is No Bad Parts. And this book focuses on internal family systems. It's a guy who created it. He's a Harvard professor, and he developed internal family systems. And it's becoming one of the more prominent forms of psychotherapy. A lot of therapists are working with it. I am not an expert in it, but I love the tools that it gives people, whether they're working with a practitioner or they're just working themselves, to find some of their parts. And basically what it starts to look at is, you're not some of the you're not who you think you are. I'm going to say it funny. You're not who you think you are. You're actually a sum total of parts, and it's actually not even you. That's your identity. Who you think you are. Who you and I really are is really free, joyous people that can choose and play in life, and yet we don't think we're that. We think we're limited in so many ways, and those are just younger parts of us that experienced something and make conclusions about how you need to be to survive in life. So in internal family systems, you actually start to take apart some of those parts and see, where did this first emerge?
Okay.
Where did this voice, I call them voices, where did this voice come from? And my version of internal family systems, I call it the choir. So it's like all of these voices make up who you are. You got your mom's voice in there.
It sounds really confronting, to be honest.
What's that?
It sounds really confronting, to be honest. As someone with a very dysfunctional family, I'm like feeling the,
It might be, but could also, again, can you be curious? Can you lean in here and start to explore some of the voices that you have that you think you are? Like, I'm shy. Well, where did that come from? You weren't born shy.
Mm-hmm.
I could never do such and such, or I'm always this, or I'm never that. Like, what are some of the things we tell ourselves can be an avenue to start exploring some of those parts or voices. And that book, I think, is a great starter for internal family systems in a way to just start exploring that. And there's some wonderful therapists you can actually find out there and find somebody who specializes in IFS, internal family systems.
And speaking of, how can our listeners find you, Steve?
I think the best way is email. I'm terrible with social media, and my website is outdated. So just if you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can email steve@theremedyonline.com.
And spell that for me, because I'm going to put it up so it can scroll.
Yeah,
Steve,
same.
STEVE at THEREMEDY.
Sorry. THE. Okay.
REMEDY. Remedy.
REMEDY. Oh, remedy. Online.com.
Yeah.
.com. All right. So that's how you can find Steve.
That's it, yeah. And I love to hear from people, and I always do a free Zoom consult because it's a way to see if we're a good fit.
Okay, that's cool.
And I'll give you the other book that's risen to the top of the pile on my nightstand is something I also work quite a bit with. It's The Wheel of Consent, and the book itself is called The Art of Receiving and Giving. And
The Art of Receiving and Giving. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and that's a colleague of mine, a mentor and colleague, Dr. Betty Martin wrote that.
Yeah, I'm going to do that training hopefully this year.
Awesome. Yeah.
There's going to be one in Utah. Yeah, I'm on their mailing list. So, yeah, thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, Steve, we've got a minute left. What kind of parting thoughts do you have on, I'd love to end with the love thing. What are your parting thoughts on how people can, heal or move forward or, find that love that they're, feeling like they're lacking?
Well, self-love is such a cliched term, isn't it?
But it is it though.
Sometimes
it's all there is
for a reason.
And it is. How can you love yourself? And if love is too difficult a word, how could you be kind to yourself?
Oh, that's a good one. Learning to be kind to yourself. Oh,
yeah. How can you be kind to others, the people you truly care about? And when you find you're upset about something, what if you just hit that pause button and stopped and listened and to be kind to them and to you? And again, that could sound so cliche, but if you you remember the Staples office supply store, they had that button, the easy button, or something was easy or something, whatever it said. We've got that.
Yeah, easy.
Imagine you have a pause button. That you could just hit the pause button in your relationship with yourself or somebody else, and actually slow down and be kind and listen.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I actually can think of the person I'd like to talk about that with. So thank you for coming today, Steve, Janice, and Jada. Thank you for always coming and support my little show that I have here.
My pleasure in all senses of the word.
And yes, exactly. Thank you, everyone, for coming and listening every week. We hope you come back again. And we're going to be here same time, same place next week. And until then, let's keep it real.
Bye. Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.